Show Financial Group.
Listen to podcasts of Joe Walsh and Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. So, again, just yesterday, finally got all the votes lined up to pass your tax increases and your overspending and your pork barrel financing and your legislative salary increases and your Illinois is the abortion capital of the country, and on and on and on. A successful session had by all. That was certainly the scene yesterday when Governor Jelly Belly had a press conference, and standing right next to him was none other than a friend of video gambling, Bill Brady, the Senate superminority leader. Op-ed in the Sun-Times suggesting that the likes of Bill Brady and Tony Munoz on the Dem side probably shouldn't be sales reps for video gaming and then also be in leadership positions. In Brady's case, the leader of the diminutive Senate Republican caucus. We heard from Mark Batnick, the House Republican floor leader, at the bottom of the 7 o'clock hour. Now let's hear from the Democrats, see if you can distinguish between the two. I'm having difficulty. We're pleased to be joined again by our friend LaShawn Ford, who's a state representative from the west side of the city and also was a candidate for mayor of Chicago in 2019. LaShawn, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
I appreciate being on with Dan and Amy. Thank you so much.
So what are you going to do with that salary bump you got? It's got to be burning a hole in your pocket, huh?
Take us out to dinner?
That's funny that the Senate said that they... You know, it's only, what is it, 1,600? You know,
hey,
I
chump change a guy like you.
It.
I know.
You know, but, I tell you, it's been since 2008 since the legislature has had a COLA. So I accept it. I'll just say that publicly.
All right. So, I mean, but just help us here, too. I mean, what's happened in Illinois with respect to wages and benefits and so forth versus the cost of living here. So over that decade, let's say, I mean, for example, right, so you're going to make $70,000 for a part-time job that you vest for a pension after, what is it now, 8 years, and you get lifetime health insurance after that as well?
Well, you have to work, I think you have to do 20 years.
Well, for the health insurance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right, and for the full pension benefit.
Full pension, full pension, but you vest after 8.
And so... Yeah, and I mean, it's funny that the Senate would say that they didn't know that it was in the bill. We slipped it in. That's so unfortunate and so unfair that they would say that because it means they didn't read the bill.
Oh, imagine. I can't imagine. Well, you would, with recreational marijuana now, are you concerned about, your neighborhood changing?
I'm kind of concerned that, and one of the provisions that I stuck to was making sure that the distance between dispensaries were far apart, because right now on the west side and on the south sides of Chicago, you could have a liquor store almost on every corner, and sometimes you can have two on the street, and that is something that I stood up against as we negotiated this cannabis bill. So I am concerned that it could bring more drugs into the neighborhood, but I also know that at the same time, it's going to control the flow of cannabis in the neighborhoods as well. People know what they're getting. I never was a big fan of legalizing marijuana, but the will of the people was that that's what they wanted.
Talking about 300 stores coming online by 2022.
Yeah, so we will have that, by 2022. So it'd be
great.
It'll be legal by January 1, 2020.
Sure. Yeah.
And so the Illinois, I guess we could collect revenue from that. I mean, we're going to get about $170 million from licenses right now coming in. So that's great. I mean, when you think about it, right now it's been an underground business, and the state has, we haven't collected any revenue from it. We've only been criminalizing it, and it's been costing taxpayers. So now I guess it's going to be time that the state collects. And,
Yeah.
You know, when you have a state that could collect, that means less taxes on individuals.
Well, then we still
And
take.
I know you
did
like
you
that.
vote? Well, that's not
sort
going to
of.
happen.
I mean,
Did you vote for the gas tax increase?
I voted for the capital bill to make sure that our roads and bridges are going to be safe, and to make sure that we're able to protect our drivers as they travel the roads.
Yeah, right. Okay, but you didn't vote for the animating revenue source, the gas tax increase.
You know, I voted to make sure that our roads and bridges are safe. I did that along with the Republicans. I think Jim House Minority Leader Jim, he led the way with
No,
it.
you're right.
No, you're right.
19,
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did vote for it.
I know. I'm just giving you guys a hard time.
Oh.
No,
being
you're not giving me a
politician trying to evade your question.
Yes, yeah, you voted for it. I got it. And
All right,
and
Republicans voted for it too.
well, there's no question. I mean, this is great bipartisanship.
Yeah.
Everybody gets together to vote for taxes that are regressive, that hit people in your district, for example, the hardest, don't they?
You know, I think that it's definitely going to, if we're able to share the wealth of the capital bill and make sure that people in the areas that I represent have opportunities to become workers as we rebuild Illinois, then it'll help our communities.
How is that?
My community is left out.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but how's that been going over your time in the General Assembly in terms of your community being cut in for opportunities?
It's very, very difficult for the black communities to be cut into opportunities when you think about the unions. But, you know, every day I fight, and we have a lot of people in the caucus that fights for making sure that we have high-paying jobs. And, you know, this is a $40-something billion capital bill, and we're going to make sure that we fight to make sure that those projects are diverse. And if that happens, then the west side of Chicago, the south side of Chicago, down in rural parts of Illinois where people have been left out, then the gas tax will not hurt. It will allow people to go to work and be proud to help rebuild Illinois.
Let me ask you a question about that abortion bill that makes Illinois the abortion capital of the country. Can you explain how it makes sense to remove health and safety standards for abortion clinics and removes the requirement for a coroner's report if a woman dies at a clinic? If these are healthcare facilities, wouldn't you want health and safety standards and reporting if those standards are violated, so you don't have happen in Chicago or Illinois what happened in Philadelphia with Gosnell?
You know, I think you're absolutely right that the bill, in my opinion, protected a woman's right to choose what she would like to do with her body. I think that the women in this state and across this country led the charge as relates to crafting this bill. And I think that we still have laws in place that will protect women from harmful practices.
Well, wait a second.
You know, the debate wasn't.
The bill, the bill removes health and safety standards at abortion clinics and the requirement for a coroner's report if a woman dies in an abortion clinic. That's what the bill does. So it removes
it
health
does,
and safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have a coroner that spoke on the floor against it, and that was Representative Brady, and he's a funeral director, and he spoke against it. But, you know, not only did the debate, was the bill somewhat poorly drafted, I think that women overall felt that it was the right thing to do. And as a male that represents women urging me to vote for it, that's my responsibility to represent the will of the people.
Didn't it make you sick, though, when they were celebrating this, though?
You know, I can't.
Kind of creepy video.
You know,
there.
One of the things that I have to add to the discussion, I appreciate you, Dan and Amy, for giving me an opportunity to do it. I think what's been missing in the debate, the abortion debate on the Democrat side, for the most part, is a little sympathy for the actual baby that's probably
Yeah.
going to be terminated in an abortion. So women have a right, but I think that there still has to be some type of moral obligation and remorse for the fetus.
Well,
And
also,
I think
yeah.
that was missing.
Yeah, the embryonic pulsing, as the New York Times reports the heartbeat bills. Embryonic pulsing is the new term for heartbeat from the left. So here's the thing, LaShawn. I mean, one, you voted for the bill. Number two, it's not women nationally. I mean, it's obviously women in places like Ohio and Georgia and Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama and Missouri and Michigan feel somewhat differently maybe than the majority of women in Illinois. And frankly, here's the rub a bit here too. I mean, you don't do a plebiscite in your district on every single issue to see where 50% plus one of the people are. You make decisions. You use your own judgment, informed by the public, but ultimately you use your own judgment. So is it always going to be where 50% plus one of your constituency is at any given moment? That's where you're going to be. If so, then why do they need a state representative? You can just phone it in when you get the results back from your surveys.
Well, I think that we do a lot more than just legislate big issues like that. We do appropriations and we do budgets. But, it is a tough decision, and the will of the people, for the most part, when you think about the civil rights movement, when you think about the gay and lesbian movements, the women's movements, these things become reality when people step up and make their voices heard in great numbers.
Like the
same thing happened.
Like the 20,000 people
legalization of marijuana.
Like the 20,000 people who filed witness slips against the pro-abort legislation, SB 25.
Yeah, I think that when you look at Springfield and when you watch how people come to the Capitol and advocate, and when you look at the phone calls that you get and you look at the mail that you get and you look at all of the opponents versus the proponents, I mean, for the most part, you have a situation where the winners prevail by great numbers. And it's unfortunate that sometimes everything isn't perfect in legislation.
I wanted to get your take on something else. The mass shooting that happened over the weekend. No, not Virginia Beach, Chicago. 10 dead, 47 shot and wounded. Your community disproportionately affected, the west side of the city. Your conversation with Lori Lightfoot or anybody else about rethinking how we're doing public safety in places like West Side and South Side neighborhoods?
Well, the young lady that was shot to death with her baby in her arms was from the Austin community where I represent and I live. And I think that the capital bill that we voted on and the budget bill that we voted on in Springfield, once again, still did not do enough to help the most devastated communities in Chicago. And Mayor Lori Lightfoot, I mean, I've communicated with her, and I'm all hers to help her fight for more support from the Springfield. It's going to take a lot more than policing to fix this problem. The police, I think, they're like, I would think that they're pretty much are needed more because there's something greater missing. And when you have all the vacant and abandoned lots and failing schools and unemployment, there was a report that said that 47% of the black young people are out of school or unemployed. What you expect to happen in those communities when people are without work, without education, it's going to happen. This capital bill should have had a bill. It should have had money in it to build a trade school for Chicago. How can we rebuild Illinois when we know we have a workforce that has a deficit in it of people to do the work?
He is state representative. I'm sorry. Finish your thoughts, LaShawn. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so we do know, and I appreciate what you're saying about will my community benefit from this capital bill and from the marijuana. Just like the women won, and America or Illinois won, if you say making sure women had the right to choose what they do with their body, black people have to get together and demand that we're treated better.
All right. He is State Representative LaShawn Ford, Democrat from the west side of the city, former 2019 Chicago mayoral candidate. LaShawn, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan and Amy.
Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.